If I asked you, who do you think is the person responsible for the most deaths in human history, your answer might be Julius Caesar, Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, or maybe Joseph Stalin, or any of the war leaders who passed through human history. But I don't think you would guess that the answer was a chemist. Yes, the person that caused the death of the largest number of humans in the history of humankind was in fact a chemist. This man might have killed people you know, and not only that, most likely he also caused a decrease in your intelligence level, yours and all your brothers, your family, and the people you know. Maybe today you would have been a nuclear scientist if this person did not exist. So how did he do all these disasters? I will tell you everything, so let's just dive right into it. In 1908, the car industry was in its beginnings. At that time, people were using the crank to start car engines. The crank is a piece of iron that you keep turning or rotating so that the car engine starts to work. So in that year, which is 1908, there was a woman driving her car on one of the bridges in the American city of Michigan. This woman's car suddenly stopped in the middle of the bridge. One of the passing drivers stopped to help the woman. He got down from his car, took the crank, which is the iron piece we talked about that starts the engine, and started trying to turn on the engine of this woman's car. He turned the heavy iron handle with all his strength. Suddenly, the engine started. It turned on, but instead of running normally, the engine forcefully snapped backwards, spinning the iron handle in the wrong direction. Before he could even move or react, the heavy metal piece turned around and hit him hard in the face, breaking his jaw. Unfortunately, the injury was very dangerous to the point that it led to his own death. This man's name was Byron Carter, and he was an owner of one of the car companies. His death in this way affected many of his friends. Among these friends was a person named Henry Leland. Henry was the founder of the famous Cadillac company. So Henry Leland was very sad and upset by the way his friend died. So he swore to himself that he would invent a new way to start car engines without using this iron crank piece that led to his friend's death. Finally, after many experiments and attempts, they succeeded in 1911 in inventing the first car whose engine starts automatically without the crank. This car was the Cadillac Model 30, and it was the strongest and best car that appeared in that year, and the demand for it was crazy. The only problem with that car was that its engine sound was very high and annoying. It would almost make you deaf. The reason of that sound was the strength and speed of the compression of the engine position on the mixture of fuel and air inside it. A lot of nerdy stuff. We will not enter into a detailed explanation because it's boring, but because of the strength of this engine, it was compressing the fuel quickly, and the fuel would ignite and generate small explosions or sparks in an irregular way. This was the main reason for the engine knocking sound that was deafening to the ears and was considered a big problem. This knocking problem was not just a sound problem. This knocking was also leading to problems in the engine and weakening its performance significantly. So what is the solution? What can we modify in the engine to fix this problem? After they searched into the matter, they figured out that the solution would not be in changing the engine itself. The solution rather would be in changing the fuel. They needed to manufacture fuel that tolerates higher degrees of pressure. Today when you go to the fuel station, you might find numbers like 91, 95, 98. This number, the higher it rises, means that this type of fuel tolerates higher pressure. So the fuel at that time did not tolerate the high pressure that these strong engines make, which is why this annoying knocking sound comes out. This annoying sound that also makes the engines perform much worse. So General Motors Company, which was and still the biggest American car company, it's the biggest. Most of the American car brands you know are owned by this company, General Motors. This company hired a chemist named Thomas Midgley. Midgley's task was to develop normal fuel and make it tolerate greater pressure, meaning his task is to manufacture a new fuel compound that solves the problem. Midgley started experimenting with every material you can imagine. He was mixing the fuel with a lot of materials like aluminum, ethyl, or even butter. Man, he left nothing. Unfortunately, most of the materials he tried did not bring any results and did not solve the engine knocking sound problem, except for one material. This material was ethyl. The problem was that the fuel needed a large amount of ethyl to solve the engine knocking problem, and ethyl is expensive, so he must find another material that is cheap and does not require large quantities to modify the composition of the fuel. After that, Midgley tried a new material called tellurium, I think, and this mixture was excellent. It solved the engine knocking sound problem completely, but this new compound had a big problem as well, which was that its smell was terrible. Even if you changed your clothes or took a shower, the smell would stick onto you for God's know when. Imagine that even Midgley's wife couldn't stand the smell to the point that she made her husband sleep in the basement for 7 months until the smell slowly went off. Midgley wrote in his diary that even though this substance solved the fuel problem, humanity could never tolerate that smell. Midgley kept experimenting in his laboratory for a period of 5 years. Finally, in 1921, he was able to find the perfect solution, or this is what he believed at the time. The material that Midgley reached at the end was tetraethyl lead. We said that Midgley discovered from the beginnings of his experiments that ethyl was an excellent material to solve the problem, but the obstacle was that it was expensive and needed large quantities. But when he merged ethyl and lead together, he was able to manufacture a compound that gives the same results and manufactures fuel that tolerates high pressure and solves the engine knocking problem. At the same time, it was cheap, available, and did not have any bad smell. It was the perfect solution, right? Correct, if the lead material was not considered a toxic material. In one of the calls that Midgley made with his boss in General Motors Company, they were talking about the amount of money that this invention would bring on the table. He told him, "Can you imagine how much this invention would make us? $200 million easily, maybe even more." And to put you in perspective, $200 million at that time equals $3 billion in today's money. Because of his new invention and discovery, the American Chemical Society decided to grant Midgley the Nichols Medal, which is considered a prestigious scientific award. They asked him to come out in international speeches and lectures to talk about his new discovery, but Midgley refused, and we will talk about the reason for his refusal in a bit. The important thing is that after this invention, they established a new company, and they named it the Ethyl Company, after the name of the compound or the substance. They completely ignored mentioning lead, even though the largest percentage in the compound was actually from the lead material, not the ethyl. But because they were aware that using the lead material would bring them negative publicity, all their marketing for the company and for this new fuel compound was on the basis that it consists of ethyl. They were not talking about the lead that was in it, not at all. This Ethyl Company was the result of cooperation between several car companies. On top of them was General Motors, along with massive oil companies in America. The company's goal simply was to market and sell this new latest fuel compound, the compound that will solve the engine knocking problem and give cars fuel whose quality is much higher than any other competitor. The marketing campaign that this company did had no match, and what helped them more than anything else is that their product was doing exactly what they claimed it does, getting rid of the annoying sound and making the engine perform with its full power without any problems. So just as Midgley and his friends in the company expected, the demand for their new fuel compound was crazy. To cover this demand, the Ethyl company needed to build a big chemical factory in the city of New Jersey. But the disasters of this new invention started to appear immediately. During 2 months only, tens of workers who were working in this factory fell victim to lead poisoning, and 5 of them died. Here, a negative view about this new fuel compound started to form among the people and the public. Even before all that, from when the Ethyl company was formed, many researchers and scientists in prestigious universities and institutions started talking against this new compound. They were always reminding the people and the government that, hello, lead is a toxic material. It should not be used like that. But the efficiency of this new fuel compound made people completely blind to these warnings. The companies and even the government were happy with the profits that started to drop on their pockets like rain. No one was interested in those warnings until people were actually starting to die. And to make the company fight these negative view that started to come out against their new compound, Midgley himself held a press conference. He brought a mixture of their new material that contains lead, and he started to inhale it in front of the people for a full minute. He kept claiming that he could do this thing on a daily basis without being affected. But do you remember the part when I said that Midgley was invited to hold speeches or lectures about the new compounds, but he refused? Well, the reason of his refusal was because actually Midgley was well aware of the harms of this material. This was the reason that made him refuse any speech or public lecture to talk about this new compound that he invented, the compound for which they gave him a big scientific award for. This was because he knew that if any scientist or researcher asked about the lead in his compound and the danger of poisoning from it, he would not be able to answer them. In fact, Midgley knew exactly the danger of this material because from the beginning of the experiments on this compound, he was exposed to lead poisoning. Yes, Midgley was a victim of lead poisoning himself. He spent almost a full year in 1923 after his experiments in Florida, spending this full year as a sick leave to recover from the poisoning that he was exposed to. When he stood inhaling this toxic material for a whole minute in front of the people in the conference, he knew that he would get poisoned, but the amount he inhaled was so little, and inhaling it for a minute would not be enough to cause him permanent damage or kill him. Lead is a very toxic and dangerous material to living creatures. When it enters the body, it gets stuck in the bones and stored in them, so it can stay for tens of years while it poisons the body more and more. The part of our bodies that lead affects the most is the brain. Among its many symptoms are permanent headache, memory loss, and numbness in the tips of the fingers. The worst is that children specifically are the least protected against lead poisoning. From a young age, lead can cause decrease in focus and intelligence level, so it starts to cause slowness in learning and behavioral problems. The problem is that the danger of lead was known from hundreds of years ago. Scientists and researchers consider this thing among the basics and matters that are taken for granted. Lead is a dangerous toxic material. It is not suitable to be put in something we use daily, let alone putting it in something that releases gas everywhere like fuel in cars. As we said, from the moment of the appearance of this compound, many scientists and researchers were warning against it. But where is the power? The power is with the people who own the money. When the car and oil companies, which are the strongest companies in the world, discovered this new gold mine, it was impossible for them to abandon it just like that. These companies hired scientists and researchers to do research that supports using the new fuel compound. In this research, their response to the subject of lead and its danger was that the quantity used in the new compound is small and will not cause many harms. The research also claimed that lead is basically a natural material present in Earth, and the new compound will not affect significantly the rates of lead in the atmosphere. This argument and discussions stayed ongoing for tens of years, and the companies companies were making tons of money from this leaded fuel. This type of fuel became widespread in all parts of the world. All countries started using it, even though there was anxiety from the people and the public about the subject and demands to ban this fuel. But the president of the American Standard Oil Company at that time, Frank Howard, said literally, and I'm quoting here, "We do not feel that it is fair for us to abandon a gift that came to our industry from heaven. Why abandon it based on a possibility that there is a small harm that might result from it? It is impossible for us to do so." Yup, this is what he said. Of course, if the oil companies wanted something to happen, it will happen, because oil is money and money is power and power is authority. If the oil companies wanted the lead fuel, well, then the lead fuel is in every corner on earth. As we said, the argument over this type of fuel stayed ongoing for tens of years. Some scientists kept saying that lead levels in the world are normal and natural, and this fuel is not affecting them. The opposite side of scientists kept saying, no, lead rates are rising in a scary way, and we must ban these things that use it. On top of them, this fuel, we must ban this lead fuel. One of the famous scientists who conducted several experiments on lead levels was a scientist named Claire Patterson. Patterson took samples from ancient mummies of people who lived thousands of years ago, mummies from Egypt and mummies from Mexico. He compared the lead level in the bones of these mummies to the lead level present in the bones of American people who died recently. Patterson was expecting that the lead level in the bones of the people who died recently would be maybe 100 times higher than the lead level present in the bones of the mummies. But the result was shocking. The lead levels of people that died recently was 1,000 times higher. So imagine the size of the effect that modern industries that use this toxic material have made. On top of them, of course, the fuel compound that Midgley invented. The studies on the effect of lead toxicity on humans were very scary. The effect of lead on the intelligence level of humans specifically was literally a terrifying thing. Today, your intelligence and your focus might be less just because of this fuel that Midgley invented and which invaded all parts of Earth. Studies showed that children who have higher levels of lead in their bodies have a much bigger probability that they fail in school. The research also says that lead poisoning is responsible for 2/3 of learning disabilities around the world. 2/3. The studies say that in total, lead poisoning is responsible for the loss of more than 800 million points of intelligence on the IQ scale. To make you imagine the size of this loss, the average IQ level for a normal person is around 100 points. So imagine that there are 800 million points lost just because of lead poisoning. There's also another studies that showed a direct positive relationship between crime rates and lead poisoning in several countries. This thing, if you think about it, is very logical. If intelligence rates decrease in general, surely crime rates will rise. Of course, not all crimes are caused by lead poisoning, but it is clear that there is a direct relationship between the two things. Now let's leave intelligence rates and crimes and all that aside. Let's see the direct deaths that lead poisoning caused. A research estimates that during the past century, lead poisoning caused the death of 80 to 100 million humans around the world. These are people who died because of heart diseases and hardening of the arteries that this type of poisoning causes. So imagine all these disasters, from the decrease in the intelligence rates of humans to the death of tens of millions of people. All of it because of Midgley and his invention of this compound, even though he knew the extent of the harm it could cause. And all this for what? For wealth and money. And all this wealth and money, where did it take him exactly in the end? Let me tell you, in the year 1940, when Midgley was 51 years old, he was infected with the polio disease. So he became physically disabled and unable to move except with extreme difficulty. Midgley's condition was horrible, and just so that he could get up from bed, he invented a mechanical bed with pulleys pulleys and ropes to be able to lift him and make it easier for him to get up from his place. But in the year 1944, while he was using his bed like usual, he made a wrong movement and the ropes turned around his neck and tangled with each other until he strangled himself and died. An invention of his own killed him, just like his other invention destroyed the lives of millions of people. After that, starting from the 80s, countries around the world started to ban leaded fuel. Japan was the first country to ban it in the year 1986, and all the other countries of the world followed it gradually. Algeria was the last country to ban the lead fuel, and it did so in 2021. It is a scary thing when you think about these things and imagine the disasters that a person or a small group of people can cause with the progress that science reached today. The thing that is more scary is when countries, governments, and massive companies all ignores a big and clear disaster just for money. A truly scary thing. And here we're done with our story. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. These are also awesome previous videos that you can watch. Tell me what you think about this story in the comments and peace out.